Hi guys, this is Andrew Burgess with NetTuts, and in this edition of the Ruby for Newbies screencast series, we are going to discuss testing our web apps. Last time, in the last episode, we discussed using RSpec to test our Ruby code, and I said that in the next screencast we're going to look at using the library Capybara. I'm not sure if I actually mentioned it, but that's the library we will be using to, in conjunction with our normal testing, to test web apps. Capybara is like a library that gives us the functionality to test an actual web application in our normal Ruby code. Often when testing a web app's UI, you have to, or we just, open up the web app in a browser and click through it and hope we didn't miss any bugs. But testing it with Capybara allows us to automate that procedure. Now, I said in the last screencast that we would be using RSpec to do this, but in the comments on that last screencast, I got a couple of people saying that they would be interested in seeing learning to do some testing with Cucumber, which is a different Ruby testing framework. And so we're going to look at using that today instead of RSpec. We're going to look at Cucumber and Capybara. But before we get to either of those, we have to have a web app to create or test. So I'm going to open up a terminal here. Let me shrink this down a bit. Okay, so let's go to the desktop here, and we're going to we'll just call this, or actually we'll just call it my app. And we're going to, since I'm using RVM, actually, we're going to create an RVM-RC file here. We want to use Ruby 1.9.2, and we'll just create a gem set called my app Cucumber example. There we go. Okay. Now I'm just going to move back into the my app directory and say, yes, I want to accept that RVM-RC file. There we go. So now if I do RVM info, you'll see here we're using Ruby 1.9.2, and our gem set is the gem set we required, or we set up. All right, so now we're also going to use Bundler to install the gems we need. So in Vim, I'm going to open a gem file. And let's see, the source of this gem file is going to be Ruby gems. What gems do we want to install? We want to install Sinatra. We want to install Shotgun, which is a server for running our Sinatra app. We want to install Cucumber. We want to install RSpec, and we want to install Capybara. Alright, so to install those, we're just going to run bundle install. While those are installing, I'll mention something about RVM here, and that is that recently I wrote an RVM tutorial on NetTuts. You can get a link to that in the text portion of this tutorial. But I recently reinstalled, I installed a new hard drive on my MacBook Pro here, so I did a reinstall of Mac OS X Lion from scratch, and I had to reinstall RVM. And I found at first that RVM-RC files weren't working the way I was used to them working before. So I went to the RVM-RC site. What was happening is it looked like the RVM-RC files just weren't they weren't being used at all. So I went to the RVM website, and I found that by default, custom project RVM-RC files are an opt-in thing in the latest version of RVM. And so I have here, you have to have a global RVM-RC file in system-wide or user-wide in your home directory, and you just want to say RVM project RVM underscore project underscore RVM-RC equals 1 in your in a .rvm-rc file in your home directory, and that will make RVM-RC files take effect per project RVM-RC files. Okay, so it looks like those gems have finished installing. That's great. So let's make our app. We're just going to call this myapp.rb. And if you're not familiar with how Sinatra works, I recommend you check out Dan Harper's excellent beginners series on Sinatra called Singing with Sinatra. There's also a link to that. That was published on NetHuts, and there's a link to that in this written portion of this tutorial as well. So let's begin here. We're going to require Sinatra base, and let's make a class here. Call it my app, and it's going to inherit from Sinatra base. All right, and then we just want to have for the for the root path, we're just going to render the index template. For the path / form, we're just going to render the form template. And if we post to thank you, we're going to, let's create, when we post, what's going to happen is they'll go to this form and then they'll fill out their name and email address on a form. This is basically just a simple app that'll let them sign up to a newsletter. So they'll start at the index page, they'll click a link that will take them to the form page, they'll fill out in the form with their name and email address, hit submit, and that will post to the thank you page. We're going to have the params array is going to have the name that they submitted, and it's going to have the email address that they submitted. Very simple, just like that. And then we're just going to render the template thank you. As you can see, we're rendering each of these templates with ERB, embedded Ruby. So we're going to make those templates next. These instance variables here, name and email, will be available as local variables within the thank you template. So let's create our templates now. I'm just going to quit this. Let's see, what do we have so far? We got gem file lock, which we got when we installed the gems. Okay, so I'm going to create, let's create some more directories here. I'm going to create a views directory, and we're going to create a features directory just because we're going to need that in a minute here when we come to testing. All right, so let's open in the views directory. I'm going to open let's call this layout.erb. Now the way Sinatra will look in a views folder by default for the layouts that we're calling there. If there's a folder, if there is a layout named layout, then that layout will be wrapped around each specific layout. So when we call ERB passing it the symbol index, it will look for the index index.erb in the views folder, but if there's a layout.erb, it'll basically render that as a frame around index, and whenever we yield from within layout, that's where index will be rendered, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. So inside layout.erb, let's just start with something very simple here. We'll have an HTML doc type. We'll just make a very simple HTML. You're familiar with how this all goes. So here's our very simple template. Basically, we just have an H1, and then once the ERB renderer hits the yield statement, it will go to the template we've specified. So now in the views folder here, let's open index.erb. And index.erb is going to be very simple. Let's just have a paragraph here that says, this is the home page. And then we're going to have another paragraph here with a link sending them to the form page. And then I'll just say sign up for our newsletter. Just like that. Okay, so now let's, on the form template, let's see, views form.erb. We have form, we'll have set the method to post, The action is going to be to the thank you URL. And we'll just say fill out this form to receive our newsletter. Let me just copy this little template here I've got, and I'll paste that a second time. Then in here we'll say for name, name type text, name is going to be name. Down here we'll say not name, say email, and email. Actually, we probably have, isn't email one of the HTML5? Anyway, we'll just put email there for now. And then down here we're going to have one more paragraph with a button of type submit. And in here we'll just say sign up. Excellent. So that is our form template. Now the only thing we need is our thank you.erb template. And this one's going to be really simple. We'll just say hi there, name. You'll now receive our email news letter at email. There you go. So those are our templates. All right. So now we'll need one more. Let's test this web app. To test it, we're going to need one more thing. We're going to need a config.ru, config.rackup file. In here, we're just going to require the my app file, and then we'll just say run my app. And now we can run a shotgun, and it'll start it up on port 9393 here. Let's start open up Firefox here, browse to localhost 9393, my app, sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter, I can type Andrew at burgess.com. I can click sign up, and undefined local variable or method name. Let's see. Well, let's let we're not going to fix that error now. We're going to let our testing fix that error when we get there. So let's begin our testing. If you look here, we have this features folder. So I'm going to move into that features folder for now. And in here, I'm going to create two more folders. One is going to be called step definitions, which we'll look at in a minute. And one is going to be called support. And inside that support folder, we are going to create an env.rb. And this is just basically a file that's going to set up our Ruby testing environment. So let's require relative here. We want to require our app. We want to require capybara, which is, we want to require capybara rspec. I'm sorry, not rspec. Cucumber, and we want to require rspec. Then we use a world block here, which is specific to Cucumber. And in here, we're going to say capybara.app equals my app. We want to set which now pretty much all this customization that we're doing in here right now, this setting up the environment, would be done if you were using these libraries in the context of a Rails application, would be done by default for you or automatically for you in Rails. However, we have to do it because we're not using Rails here. So we want to include now the capybara domain specific language, and these are the methods that will allow us to test our web app specifically, and you'll see how those works in a moment here. So next we want to load our rspec expectations, and finally we want to include rspec matchers. Alright, so I can close that now, and now we are finally ready to actually write our tests. So you'll remember how we had different spec files for different features, if you will, in our spec in the last tutorial. In Cucumber, those are actually called features. As you can see, we're in the features folder. And so now we're going to open our homepage.feature file and actually write a feature. So this is because Cucumber is written to Cucumber is made as supposed to be a very elegant solution to behavior-driven development. And in behavior-driven development, part of that is understanding exactly what the client wants before creating the client's project. And so these Cucumber feature files are supposed to be made in a way that's supposed to be really easy for the client to read the tests and understand exactly what we're testing for. So the client knows exactly what they're getting in each feature. So we're going to start by describing the feature. And what's the feature? The feature is when the viewer visits the home page. And then after this, we have 3 lines that kind of just declare the intention of this test. This isn't really code here. I mean, it is code, and in fact, you'll find that this whole file seems very much like plain text, but it's actually it's Gherkin code, which you can read about at a link I give you in the tutorial, the written portion of this tutorial. And it's code that's just very, very easy to understand. But this part that we're writing right here doesn't actually have any effects on how our tests run. It's more just for us so that we understand exactly what the tests are supposed to do. So we're going to say, in order to read the page as a viewer, I want to see the home page of my app. So this declares what we want to do, what our role is in doing it, and how we should be able to do that. So in order to read the home page as a viewer, that's my role, I want to see the home page. So I can't read it unless I see it. So now we write a number of scenarios. So we're going to say scenario. The scenario here is viewing the home page. And every scenario has 3 kind of portions. We have a bunch of given preconditions. We have a bunch of actions that we will perform given those preconditions, and then we have the results that we want to see for the test to pass. So in this case, there's no actions we want to do. We're just going to say, given I am on the home page, then I should see this is the home page. So basically, all this test says is that given the condition that I am on the home page, then I should see the text, this is on the home page, or this is the home page. I know that text is on my home page, and therefore this test should pass. So let's come back here. I'm actually going to move back up to my app directory, into the features directory, and I'm just going to call Cucumber, and let's see what happens. Alright, so we get a bunch of output here. Here's our Cucumber call. So we have the feature, our kind of header to our Cucumber feature file here printed out. And then we have our scenario here. Notice these are in yellow, which means they weren't actually run. You can see here we have 2 steps that are undefined. So it says you can implement step definitions for undefined steps with these snippets. And we have these snippets given here. So I'm just going to copy these. And let's paste them into a file here, and then we'll discuss them. So I'm going to open in the step definitions folder. I am going to open, we're just going to call this Sinatra steps.rb. So every file that's in the step definitions folder, it will be loaded as steps that could be used in our feature scenarios. Okay, so let's see what we have here. We have a method called given with a regular expression parameter and then a block. So notice the regular expression is I am on the home page. So basically every line in our scenario needs to match regular expression. So, and when it matches that regular expression, some code will be run. So what do we want to run on the given I am on the home page? scenario? Well, we want to use the visit here. The visit method is a capybara method, and we're basically saying visit the path slash. How does it know where that slash is? Well, remember we said capybara.app equals my app. So it knows the application it's testing, and it runs that application. The neat thing is we don't have to have a server or a browser running. It knows how to create the application and visit the slash path, get back what we would get if we went to a browser, and knows what it can do with it. So then we have I should see, and notice we have this kind of regular expression here. So it's realized here I should see, and it knows in quotes here we have this text. So we'll be able to use, we don't have to have a regular expression that exactly matches the text on every line like we do here in given. Just because it's a regular expression, we can have variables like that. So see, we have this gets passed as an argument 1, and we can actually change that to text. And then in here, we're going to say, then I should see, we're going to say page.should, and you'll recognize this. This is why we need RSpec involved, because this page.should is an RSpec expectation, right? Page.should, and we're going to use the capybara method have content, and we're just going to say text, and I don't need the parentheses there. So then I should see text, and we're going to say page.should have content. Page here is given to us by capybara. That page is an instance of a capybara session, and so page should have text. All right, so we've defined those two. Let's clear this and run Cucumber again here and see what happens. Okay, so this is red, which means it's not passing. Now I've noticed here recently I've had some issues with with Cucumber hanging up like this, and it won't continue. If a test doesn't pass, we'll get the test that doesn't pass, and then it kind of just stalls on me. So I believe, and maybe that's the default behavior, I'm not sure. But, so let's see why this isn't passing. So let's open up our, I'm going to go to, actually, I'm going to have to go up a folder here. We're going to go to, up 2 folders. Let's see, where are we here? We're in features. Okay, so I'm going to have to go up a folder to views, and actually I don't want to say cd. I want to say tab, open, another tab. We're going to open views.index. And the problem here is there's no period at the end of this sentence. So now you'll see we have this period here in this text. So now if I kill this, clear that, and run it again, you'll see there we have our pass test screen. We have 1 scenario, 2 steps, everything is passed. Excellent. Let's write another test. So we'll go back to our home page here, and let's make sure we have what we want to see on the home page. So we'll say the scenario find heading on home page. So given I am on the home page, we'll say that again, then I should see the app, and we're actually going to make something new here. We're going to say the app in the selector H1. So notice what we're saying here. Then I should see the app is the same as above here, but we're actually creating a new, it's going to match a different regular expression because we're saying in the selector H1. So from our perspective, the way this will be different is then I should see this is the home page. As long as that's on the page, that test will pass. This test should have only passed if the text, the app, is inside of the selector H1. So in this case, we're just going to pass a CSS selector here, and inside the element that matches that CSS selector, we should find that text. So let's, well, see, first of all, if we run this, we should get another undefined, so I can implement it. Let me just copy this here and come back here. And I'm actually going to divide these up. Oops. I'm going to say these are the given section here. We're going to have some whens here later on. We'll talk about those, and then we're going to have then here. So let's see, what do we have here? Then I should see matched in quotes to that. Okay, so let me, we'll change this to then I should see text in selector. So we're going to say page.should have content. How does this go? Have context. Actually, no. We're going to say page should have selector, and then we pass it the hash, another hash parameter here, content equals content. And we have to have end there. Okay, let's clear that and run Cucumber again. Ooh, so then I should see the app in the selector each one, so that did not pass. All right, let's see what's the matter with that. So the question is this the problem of our code here should have selector content? And of course the problem here is that content is not set. We want to say text. There we go. So let's kill that, clear that, run that again, and now it should pass without a problem. There we go. So we have our two scenarios passing. Let's do one more scenario here before we move on to testing the form page. So we're going to say scenario, find the link to the form. So again, given I'm on the home page, then I should see a link with actually, let's keep kind of the same. I should see sign up for our newsletter in a link. Let's say that. Or actually, let's just use in, no, let's say in a link, because I know it's going to be written differently behind the scenes here. So then I should see sign up for our newsletter in a link. Okay, that's good. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to, in the Sinatra steps, I'm going to create it right away here. So let's paste that in there. Let's turn it into a regular expression. Oh, actually, wait. No, we want that regular expression to end there, not there. Okay, so we're going to have do text here in a second, but let's set this up here. In here, basically, all we want to say is we want to capture everything that is not a... In fact, we should probably just look at this a second. You can see the regular expression here. We have a caret at the beginning, which means start at the very beginning of the line we're trying to match. We have a $ at the end, which means go right to the end of the line we're going to match. And then in here we're grouping anything, and in square brackets when we start with a caret like that, it means do not include any of these characters. So basically anything that begins right, we're going to start gathering right after a double quote and collect anything that is not a double quote, as many as you can, right up until the last double quote. So that should catch everything between the double quotes. And then in here, we're going to say page.should have link. And then we're just going to put the text there. All right, so that should work just fine. Let's clear this again. And it doesn't pass. So let's make sure that text is the text we have. Sign up for our newsletter, period, not exclamation point. Let's place that with a period. Kill that, clear that, run that, and it's passing. Excellent. So that is our first feature file. Let's now create the form feature file for the form page. So inside, we're in the features directory here. Is that right? Yes, we are. So we can just create form page.feature. So in here, let's say, what's our feature? Viewer signs up for the newsletter. That's the behavior we want to test here. So in order to receive the newsletter as a user of the website, I want to be able to sign up for the newsletter. All right, so we're going to have two scenarios here. First scenario, we're just going to call view form page here. And given I am on form, then I should see fill out this form to receive our newsletter. Let's say that. All right, so now we don't have this given path here, right? Given I am on, so let me copy that back here to Synapse steps, and up here, this given, we'll see it's very similar to what we have up here. And think about it for a second. How do you think we're going to do this? I think you know what we're going to do. Because basically all we need to do is use the very same method we used before up here I'm on the home page. All we have to do is say visit, and actually we need to take path here as the parameter that we get out of that, and we'll just say visit the path. And then down here we're using I should see text dot should have contents, should have content, page dot should have content text in our form feature here. So this should work just fine. So let's kill this, and in this case, well, if I just run Cucumber, you'll see that it will run both of the feature files that it finds in the text, except unless one dies on us. So let's open, and I bet I just got the text wrong again. Views, let's open our form page, fill out this form to receive our newsletter. Let me just copy that. Probably just spelled receive wrong, or yes, that's what it was. So let's run Cucumber again, and there we go, it passed. So you can see here, let me widen this a bit. There we go. So you can see we have our viewer signs up for newsletter feature and our viewer visits the home page feature. So we have 4 scenarios, 8 are passing. After we write this next feature, I'll show you how to just run one scenario or one feature file at a time. So this feature is going to be a little more complicated, and I think you're going to like this. This should be, the scenario is going to be called fill out form. We'll call it that. So then we're going to say, given I am on form, when I fill in name with John Doe. Now, hold a second here. When. When is basically an action we want to perform. So given is a precondition to the test. And really, for what we've been using given for, I've seen both ways used in Cucumber, given I am on the home page, or given I am a viewer when I am on the home page, making when an action. I think it goes either way, really. In this case, we're saying, given I'm on this page, when I fill in the name field with John Doe, and I fill in email with john@doe.com. So what's this and? I thought we said there was given, when, and then. Well, basically, and we could have and statements under any of our 3 given, when, or then. And this is going to execute as a when statement. But we can use and just to make it more clear what's going on. See, I could say something like, given, and I don't know why I have that quote there, given I am a viewer and I am on the home page. And notice how my syntax highlighting is highlighting that as green, which means it's going to recognize that as a given statement. So you can have any number of given statements, any number of preconditions. You can have any number of actions to take when, and we can have any number of then statements. I can say then something and something else, and both of those things, and the test will pass if both of those statements are true. So when I fill in name with John Doe, and I fill in email with John Doe, john@doe.com, and I click sign up, then I should see, hi there, John Doe. You'll now receive, I'm spelling receive right? Nope. Receive our email newsletter at john@doe.com. All right, so I hope I spelled, let me just, I'm going to make sure I spelled receive right on the view. Yes, I spelled receive right there. Okay, so we can quit that. We can quit the form too. All right, so, well, let's let our tests not pass first, and then we'll write those. So in this case, I'm going to say Cucumber features form page specifically. So I'm going to tell it which feature file to run, and it's only going to run that feature file. All right, so we have, these are our two steps here, our two when steps that we need to fill in for these tests to pass. All right, so when I fill in, we're going to say element with text. Back here, let's say we're going to use the fill in method for that we get with Capybara. And we're going to say fill in name with text. So this name here, if we, let me show you here if I open up the Capybara website here in Firebug, then, or Firefox, then you can see it. You can run all the way down here and you can see right down here at the end, the DSL. This is the domain specific language. So this is how you can get around. And there are other things here that we're not going to be using in this screencast. So you might want to come check this out afterwards. Of course, there's a link to this in the written portion of the tutorial. So you can see we have visit for navigating around. We have click link, click button, or click on, which clicks on either a link or a button. And we can pass it either the ID or the actual text. Down here we have fill in. And this the first parameter here, when we're saying fill in first name with John Doe, that can either be, I believe this either takes the label that goes with it, or the name attribute or the ID attribute, I believe, and it will fill it in with whatever parameter we pass in there. We can fill in any of those. We can choose a radio button, check a checkbox, uncheck, attach a file, select an option from a select box. We can use these different selectors, and you see here what we're actually doing is we're using RSpecs matchers to call, see, we could say page.hasSelector, or here's a better one, page.hasContent, which we've used, but instead we're using page.shouldHaveContent, so we're using the RSpec. That's why we're loading those RSpec matchers at the beginning, or in our environment.rb file. And there's a lot more you can do here with finding links and all kinds of stuff that you can check out, but you get the idea there. So this is how we're using fill in from Capybara, fill in name with text. And so then when I click, and we're going to use click on, we're going to call that text as well, because that's what it is. Or actually we'll just call it element, because it'll be some way of referring to a given element. All right, so those should pass now. Let's clear that, run our form page.feature, and see what happens. So when I fill in name with John Doe, let's see, how did that go wrong? Well, I said name specifically here. I want to say when I fill in element with John Doe. Okay, let's kill that again, run it, and there you go. Those seem to be, these are pretty long lines and they're wrapping on me. This seems to have stalled on me. So this is stalling here on us, and I'm not sure why, but I remember that we had a problem when we tried to post the form. Okay, and I think that the problem here is that it can't even run. It can't even finish successfully the test that it's trying next to run. And it's not outputting an error for us. But remember we had this problem when we were running our other file, and let's see. Let's open the view that's supposed to be rendering here, which is views.thankyou. That's what it's, and here's the problem. I mentioned earlier that these should be that these are local variables inside here. They're actually instance variables. That's the problem. So those should be instance variables like that, just the same way as, let me show you here. We have in my app, we create them as instance variables. Temporary brain lapse there. These should not be these aren't accessed just by as local variables like name. They are accessed as the instance variables. So let's kill this and see if that will solve the problem. There you go. So that solves the problem fine. And you can see that our scenario here is passing. Well, that has been a quick introduction to our Cucumber, testing with Cucumber and testing with Capybara. And I'm sure you can imagine exactly how testing with Cucumber would work if you're not testing a web app. You're just writing out the behavior like this, and then for each of your lines that you're matching, now, and the nice thing is if you're using it with Ruby, with Rails, you'll find that several of these step files have been automatically generated for you. However, with Sinatra, we have to do that for ourselves. And so, as you can see, that's not too hard at all. And of course, this can be any Ruby code at all. Of course, we're doing specific, we're using Capybara and RSpec code here, but it could be any Ruby code you want. And as you can see, it makes a really nice and easy way to write out a test so that both you as a programmer can understand what happens and your client can read these scenarios and features and understand exactly what feature they're getting. So that has been a quick look at Cucumber and Capybara and testing a Sinatra app with those. And thanks for watching.